independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. I am here today. I'm back on Monday. Chad will be back later on next week. Thrilled to be here, as always. Lots to get to, though. Our president talking about masks, being asked lots of questions about how and why things changed in the world of putting on a mask and those who were vaccinated. And obviously, a lot of people have some kind of version of that answer, mostly to deal with Delta variant, how it's potentially scarier than other variants. But I do think it's interesting the way the question's thrown out there, the answer given by our president. And then I want to weigh in on what I think the actual reason is for a lot of these changes, both of them, actually. The CDC, when they removed the mask mandate a while back, and now I think there's a different motivation than just science. I know, I sound like a tinfoil hat guy. Here we go, though.
President, you said if you are fully vaccinated, you no longer need to wear a mask. And it seems...
I didn't say. You did. I have said if you're fully vaccinated in an area where we do not have... Well, let me clarify.
In May, you made it sound like a vaccine was the ticket to losing the mask forever. And
that is true at the time, because I thought there were people who were going to understand.
Yep, that was true at the time. I know that that's not the best of audio when they have those conversations out there and they're picking it up kind of funky. But the truth is that the ever-changing guideline now says that you're supposed to wear a mask, even if you're vaccinated in certain areas in the country. This is from the CDC. And here's the thing. If we remember when they dropped the mask mandate, a lot of people were surprised. A lot of government individuals, a lot of people that weren't notified of the CDC's line of thinking before it happened were very surprised that that was out there in the world. And no matter what we think about the science of all of this, and those who are vaccinated are tremendously protected against spreading COVID-19, against getting seriously ill from COVID-19, that hasn't changed. Even the Delta variant, the vaccine works and prevents all those scary things. But back when they dropped the mandate, I think that was to encourage people to get vaccinated. I think it's that simple. I think they debate, versions of this conversation, and they go, all right, the science is kind of determined on this. We kind of think we know where we're at here. What can we do that gets more people to go get a shot? And then when that didn't happen, when a lot of Americans, when about 50% of Americans voiced the concern at getting 2 shots, I know we have a little bit more than 50 if we're talking about just 1. But when that all occurs, then what's the discussion for the government? Well, the science still hasn't changed. The Delta variant is a little bit more or maybe a lot more infectious, depending on who you ask, maybe potentially more deadly or potential for more serious illness. All right, but the mask, the vaccine still works. The masks aren't really necessary. But what if when we drop the ability to go mask-free for those that are vaccinated, the people who I know Chad has talked a lot about, the ones most likely to wear a mask now, if they're asked to do it, are people who've been following the rules the whole time. People who've been doing everything that they've been told to do are the ones that are likely to be upset by this and the ones that are very, very likely to do something in accordance to the new guidelines. They're going to be mad. They're going to start to talk to their friends who aren't vaccinated, and we're going to cause that conflict thing. If you remember, there were several studies done and several conversations out of the White House about how effective it is for someone in your own everyday life to tell you to get the vaccine compared to anything else, compared to the talking points, putting Fauci out there on TV somewhere. A lot of people have their own opinions now. A lot of people think they have been lied to. They have been, they misrepresented a lot of different things in order to get them to do something. And so then they wanted to start sending preachers door to door in all the communities, knock on those doors and tell you, hey, you need a vaccine. Well, I don't think that strategy was working terribly well. And part of the reason why is probably the amount of volunteers and the specific people they were looking for to volunteer for that gig just weren't there. And also door-to-door sales on anything is terrible. So now I think it is this new change in behavior from the CDC is 100% to cause conflict and or conversation between people. So in everyday life, you're having those conversations about who has a vaccine, who doesn't. You have NFL teams that make some players wear one bracelet, one color, If you have a vaccine and another one a different color, it's the scarlet letter. We are actually doing it. And I've said before, whenever I've talked about this on air anywhere, that I am vaccinated. I do believe in the science of the vaccine, so I'm not trying myself to say that it's something you shouldn't believe in. However, I'm also not telling you how to live your life. You can make that decision however you want. Our government doesn't always seem to know that. Karine Jean-Pierre gave the press briefing the other day from the White House. Jen Psaki, not available, I guess. She was asked a question about the border specifically and the amount of people crossing that may be positive for COVID-19. It seems like we're very afraid of COVID in a lot of places. For some reason, our government doesn't seem terribly concerned about those crossing at the border. She did say that we're sending people back. I don't know if that's anywhere near as true as she says it is, but here is the question from Peter Doocy and the answer.
And last one, just because you talked about this administration having a priority of protecting the American people, can you help us understand why is it that the federal government is asking vaccinated Americans to wear masks to stop the spread of COVID-19, but at the same time, federal agents are also releasing COVID-19 positive border crossers into small towns in Texas? How is that?
Well, let's step back for a second because this is.
I love this part, by the way. That's why I left this in. I think someone's just sending a fax halfway through the White House press briefing, and everybody is entertained by this, even those who seem like they're going to be opposed in some things. Doocy and Jean-Pierre both enjoy this moment.
Very interesting. I'm sure everything's fine.
Something I said?
It could be.
I love the idea that an alarm goes off somewhere during the press briefings when Peter Doocy asks the wrong question. I know they're kidding, but I love that idea. I wish it were true.
Okay, so I just want to be very clear here. I do want to answer your question, Peter. First, just to step back and do this 30,000-foot view, there's been no change in Title 42. Families and single adults are expelled, if possible, when apprehended at the southern border. The majority of apprehensions that we saw at the border in June were expelled.
See, there's some debate as to whether or not that's accurate or whether or not they're just being let into the country and not held at all, and whether or not the percentage of people that show back up to the appointment that you'd have later, because that's the whole thing. The catch and release idea is, all right, we catch you, we release you into our country, and you'll report to ICE at some point in the future. A very small amount of people actually still do that. A little bit more from Jean-Pierre.
CBP provides migrant with PPE from the moment they are taken into custody, and migrants are required to keep masks on at all times, including when they are transferred or in the process of being released. If anyone exhibits signs of illness in CBP custody, they are referred to local health systems for appropriate testing, diagnosis, isolation, and treatment.
Yep. Don't worry. Everything's under control. We do everything just fine. Nothing to see here. No news there, which is also just honestly the policy on so many things. All right, I want to shift gears. It's Friday. There's other things in the news than politics, which I just have to be honest, and I wonder if you feel this way too. They stress me out more now than they used to. I don't know what it is about them. I don't know if it's COVID related or just the things that go on, but I have a different tolerance for that news of the day than I used to have. But this I find very funny. A BBC reporter, her name is Claire Balding. She was talking to a couple Olympic gold medal swimmers about the great job they did in their event. She phrased things interestingly, though, and both of the swimmers smiled, laughed quite a bit before answering the question. It has gone viral. It is an innocent question. It may not sound like one. I do very much enjoy this, though.
It's fair enough in this situation. And Matt, also for you, you're 18 years old. It's your first Olympics. And you swam. Honestly, your third leg was just phenomenal.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't actually had a chance to watch it back yet. I've tried to find it, and I'm having some trouble finding the video of the race.
I had trouble finding it. His third leg was phenomenal, was a quote that was being used quite a bit on social media. And hey, that is a real swimming term. You swim in different legs. Anyway, that's something that's out there in the world, and the Olympics certainly are a conversation that I'm probably going to have a lot more of today. I have to take a break. A lot more. This is Craig Collins filling in on the Chad Benson Show.
Doo-doo? Yeah. The Chad Benson Show.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins, filling in. Chad will be back next week. Thrilled to be here. Lots to get to. Scarlett Johansson is suing Disney because they put her movie Black Widow up on their streaming service and didn't pay her for it. That's the claim anyway. There's this new kind of thing. I think Robert Downey Jr. was fairly famous for his, where in these big, giant, I guess, superhero-specific movies, and probably some other stuff, they start giving the big actors in them, the stars, cuts of the box office. So you get paid a percentage of the money on how well your movie does. That kind of makes sense to me. If you put a movie up on a streaming service, you don't have to pay people for that. And they made $60 million plus there, and Scarlett didn't get any of it. What I find so interesting about this lawsuit, though, in this conversation, Scarlett did make a lot of money off of being in the Black Widow, is it obviously demonstrates the actor doesn't really intend to work with the company anymore. That's true anywhere you go in life. The moment you throw down a lawsuit, you're probably done working with whoever you're suing in any capacity, whether or not, the lawsuit's fair or not. Disney did respond back, kind of shaming the actress, I guess, in their opinion. They said that there is no merit whatsoever to this filing. Their own lawyers, they also said the lawsuit is especially sad and distressing in its callous disregard for the horrific and prolonged global effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. That is strong words, in my opinion. That's harsh, throwing down the old pandemic stuff and the prolonged global effects. And you guys did make 60 mil off of the streaming version of the movie, something you wouldn't have done without COVID, something you wouldn't have done without the pandemic shutting everything down. I think there is an argument, by the way, and I know we probably don't care if she makes a few extra million or not, but there is an argument here for the actress against the company, and the COVID excuse does feel like a less than valuable one. In other news, the Minneapolis mayor, Jacob Frey, actually recently discussed how maybe cutting back on police budgets and announcing it. Here's the biggest thing about the defund the police movement, which is stupid, which does assume that society can be idyllic sometimes, and if there isn't a deterrent for crime, that less crime will somehow occur. Of course, that's not true. But what is interesting is the conversation actually does a terrible, terrible job of additional encouragement. It provides that additional, hey, we're defunding the police publicly and out loud. Any criminals out there who've contemplated doing something, now's the time to go ahead and do something awful. That is essentially part of the problem. And he does acknowledge that, to the credit of the mayor in Minneapolis, one of the many places that has discussed a lot and done a lot in the world of moving with kind of a lot of urgency toward a very reduced police budget. It's probably a bad move, and especially so when it's being publicized this much.
It's just the reality of the situation. When you make big overarching statements that we're going to defund or abolish and dismantle the police department and get rid of all the officers, there's an impact to that.
There's an impact. I love how simplistic that is said, by the way. I love, it's almost like it's a eureka moment for someone who has probably been on the wrong side of this for a while, and a lot of people on the wrong side. Because if you're looking at your own community, and many of the big cities are seeing a lot of this, as the violence and everything is ticking up and up and up, you're like, wait a minute, maybe part of the idea we had here is bad after all. Who knew? So shifting gears back to Disneyland for just a second, Disney World and that company, they are going to reinstate indoor masks amid the COVID rise. One of a lot of companies, or even sports franchises, all kinds of things, adding COVID related mask wearing kind of restrictions. This is something that certainly is debated by a lot of people. And certainly, again, the science hasn't really changed for those who are vaccinated. The conversation is more just the amount of people who've gotten the vaccine being the bigger issue there. I will say that I don't want at all to wear a mask. I have no interest in doing that, but I'm not sure I'm going to fight those things. I'm certainly not going to have a viral video anywhere attacking a person at a Target if we get back to that world. It is the sacrifice you're willing to make, I think, a lot of people are willing to make. You don't want to see anything else. You definitely don't want to see things closed down, and I'm afraid every day we're going that way. In other news, I find this tremendously interesting, And I'm vastly entertained by some of the dumber, sillier, stupider things the internet does for us. I think there's a lot of ways social media and the internet are bad, but every so often there's something that's not that bad. Shark Week was just a few weeks ago. Apparently people need their animal fix, their random animal viewing fix. And there's this viral website that shows black bears and brown bears eating fish in rivers and lakes. This is real. There's hundreds of bears that they go to the lake, and they're all just catching fish that are jumping in the air. And this stream gets thousands and thousands of eyeballs at the least, and maybe a lot more. They call it Fat Bear Week. It's real. It's a social media thing. It's an internet thing. And apparently a lot of people are captivated by it. You can go to the Brooks Falls live stream on YouTube and other places to see bears eating fish because apparently that's all that entertainment is now. You know, when you do something like this for a living, you work hard on all the things you talk about, all the things we discuss, and then you find out that you can just go viral putting a video in a corner of a lake that shoots bears eating food. You start to wonder what the exact future is for so many of us. A New Jersey company purchased an old Walmart building in order to create medical marijuana in it. A Walmart facility. This facility is huge, and apparently they've made so much pot there in such a short amount of time that the stench coming from the Walmart is disturbing all the neighbors. There was a zoning issue at one point. Now there's just complaints all the time that you can't live in this community because it reeks of pot 24/7 because someone bought a Walmart and decided to grow it. I don't know why it hits me extra special that it's a Walmart, but that sounds like a crap ton of marijuana. I got to take a break. A lot more. Craig Collins filling in on the Chad Benson Show.
The Chad Benson Show.
Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. This is an interesting story. SNL's Michael Che, a guy who now also has an HBO show and some other things going on, recently made a joke on social media about Simone Biles and about Larry Nassar. Of course, a lot of people are talking about Simone Biles and her decision not to be a part of the Olympics. She's at the Olympics. She was expected to compete in the Olympics. She was expected to do very well and win a lot of things. And she, for mental health reasons, chose not to go ahead and compete. And there honestly are other athletes now saying how weird this Olympics is because of the lack of fans in the stands, the experience, the year delay. So many things have made it a nuanced Olympics that I think that maybe some of us, when we talk about Simone Biles in the world of mental health and whether or not that's an excuse that makes sense when you're an elite athlete, we are forgetting how unique the last 1 year or so has been on all of us and that these are humans. She's a 24-year-old human, but Che made a joke that connected to the sexual abuse scandal, and people are going after him on social media, demanding that maybe he gets fired from SNL, among other things. And I know that, actually, I feel this way very strongly, that comedy deserves the least censorship of anything we do in society. If you go out there and you choose to be a comedian, to make jokes in public that are absolutely supposed to be perceived as humor, then I think the amount of things we censor there, criticize there, needs to be way less than the world in which we live now. I do not think this actually falls into that exception, though. I do agree with a lot of the pushback, a lot of the calls for things. I don't even want to necessarily quote the exact tweet, because I do think that's something that, he made the joke. It's out there in social media. You can go look at it if you want. But I definitely think that when we're connecting those dots, the dots of the trauma that might have occurred for Simone specifically and for other gymnasts, and then talking about this conversation about her not wanting to be a part of this current Olympics as a competitor, I think that we're talking about two very separate and different things, even though they could both be tied to the same mental health conversation. So, yeah, I definitely absolutely feel as though that's the kind of thing that probably shouldn't be joked about. If anything, should get censored out of the world of comedy. Sun Lee is the name of someone who won a gold medal, 18-year-old U.S. Gymnast. She won the gold medal in the event, one of the bigger events that Simone dropped out of. She did talk about what she does to celebrate a gold medal, and the answer was just some nice little comfort food.
I don't even know. I'm going to go eat a pizza. Like, that's all I've been craving this whole time.
Okay. The reason I play that audio and enjoy that audio so much, the sound of her voice, the innocentness. She's 18 years old. She's asked what she's going to do to celebrate, and she's like, I don't know, have a pizza. When I talk about the mental health thing and Simone Biles choosing not to compete in the Olympics, I think all the time, and this is the only analogy I can draw. I have no experience in this, by the way. Any version of me doubting my skills in athletics happened in like 3rd or 4th grade. I don't think that it rises to the occasion to compare my own life. But whenever you see a perfect game happening in the world of baseball, when you ever see a pitcher getting into the 7th, 8th, 9th inning, you can see this in a movie, by the way, too, not just in real life. The idea is to send a rookie up to bat, to send someone who's getting maybe the first at bat of their career late in the game when a pitcher is obviously pitching very well. You know the reason why that's such an idea that might break up a perfect game? The young person doesn't really care about the moment. The young person totally drops that out of the equation, and they're just out there because, hey, this is my first try, or maybe the nerves of getting a shot in general, a shot that no one really expects you to win, even though you're being given this opportunity, helps you get over the moment in a lot of ways. And I think that was the problem with Simone Biles. I think that was the issue. She went to an Olympics a year delayed, pandemic, no fans in the stands, and she was expected to win six events. She was expected to win 6 gold medals and do incredibly well, and she couldn't. And I've actually said this before, too, a couple places. I do think there has to be a fancy version of it's okay to lose that you can say to athletes at those kind of levels that essentially gets them to go ahead and compete anyway and not worry about the same things that kids worry about sometimes or young athletes worry about. And it's the same advice, just probably a lot better, a lot fancier, more nuanced is, it's okay if you lose. You should still go out there and try to have fun. You don't have to put the pressure of the world on your back, and no one's going to throw you out of the country if you don't come home with 6 medals. And I think that that's why young people are doing so much better in that regard, or that this young person won and then just wanted to go grab a pizza. It's solely because in that world, you don't think about it the same way, and that causes a lot of different things. I also saw this, Ryan Murphy. This is my last little Olympic conversation. I have been watching a lot of Olympics. Ryan Murphy is a swimmer who is expected to do very well in a couple different events. He did not win the events that some expected him to do well in. He spoke after it, saying that he was worried about steroids and that it probably wasn't a clean race. These are things he actually said. He felt as though the only way he could have done as poorly as he did is if the other people cheated. And just the Russian team, which I know is not actually technically the Russian team. They are banned from this Olympics because they set up a facility next to a drug testing site to try to import clean samples from their athletes and take out the dirty ones because they knew all their athletes were hopped up on a bunch of steroids. And so now you have a bunch of Russian athletes competing under the Russian Olympic Committee team, which is very odd in and of itself, and they are winning things. And I wonder if I'd feel the same way that he feels, that maybe this isn't the cleanest of events, and maybe this year just more and more things are going on. All right, I said no more Olympic stories. I'm going to do one more. Fans are petitioning for a cartoon-based card game to be added to the Olympics. The game is called Yu-Gi-Oh! I don't know much about this, but I guess it's a cartoon that kids really like and also a card game similar to Pokemon. It says, if this ever happens, and I imagine it won't, but there is a change.org petition about it. There's a lot of people begging for this to happen. I think I'm done with the Olympics at that point. You got the 3-on-3 basketball tournament, which I actually think is kind of cool being a part of the Olympics this year. The women won, by the way. The U.S. women took gold in that event. You got breakdancing coming up in the Olympics in the near future. If we ever tune into an event and they're doing the play-by-play and they're sitting down playing cards and or video games, and I know there's a lot of people out there who are gamers. I'm not trying to go after you. It can't be an Olympic sport. You can't get it there. Otherwise, we have a lot of problems. In other news, too, love this story a lot. A London tourist attraction is being ridiculed for just being a small hill. I love the description here. So a Dutch architecture company designed a new tourist attraction. They call it the Marble Arch Mound. It is described on the website for this tourist attraction, and I say that in air quotes, as a new and meaningful experience that captures imagination of residents, businesses, and visitors. That's what they describe it as. Anyone who's shown up at it sees it as just a hill, just a mound of dirt is what they're saying, and people are very upset in the world of social media, in the world of reviewing this actually on any kind of review site. The mound is a living building by design, is what the council said. Will continue to adapt and improve London's newest outdoor attraction and resolve any teething problems as they emerge. People not happy. And I know that I've made this mistake. I know that I saw a lot of people are planning a very fancy vacation this year. If you are not afraid of things like the Delta variant, you are planning maybe to spend twice as much as you normally spend. And when we go out and do these vacation-y things, you can get dragged into the silliest of tourist attractions. And in this world, I can see myself winding up and standing in front of a mound of dirt and being very confused as to why I'm there and very confused as to what the idea behind it all is. And then probably super disappointed because as things get more expensive, as inflation wreaks havoc on so many of the things we do every day, going grocery shopping, whatever it is you're doing, that big spending stuff, that stuff like, I don't know, buying a car or in this case, going on a nice vacation, it probably hits you a little bit harder. The moment you're standing there and you're not impressed at all with the thing you've traveled to is like, man, this cost like $100 extra. I really want this to go away. One more quick story, and then I got to take a break. If costs were the same, consumers were asked if they would prefer a hybrid vehicle or an electric car. Car prices through the roof right now. A brand new car is now averaging about $42,000, which is a huge increase in price. But people were asked, would you go full electric or would you still want the engine in there somewhat? And people picked hybrid, even though it is the cheaper car right now. Anyway, it didn't seem to be price was the problem. The Biden administration, of course, begging people to go electric, and Democrats and far left Democrats, I think, want us to walk everywhere we go if we don't drive electric vehicles. But I just love the fact that most consumers, most American consumers, I still want the gas engine. I still need that in order to feel like I'm safe getting around, and I'm not going to be stranded somewhere trying to pull out an extension cord to find the closest plug to plug my car into. Quick break, a lot more. Craig Collins filling in on the Chad Benson Show.
Set Chad straight. Text the show 323-538-2423. That's 323-538-CHAD. Someone has to do it. Might as well be you. The Chad Benson Show.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. Chad will be back next week. McDonald's had a massively successful BTS meal. That's a band. If you don't know who BTS is, the meal was so successful, in fact, that one person found a weird-looking chicken nugget. It looked like a character in a video game and sold it for almost $1 million. These are all real stories. McDonald's is at it again. They are collaborating with Saweetie. Her name is Saweetie. She is a rapper. They're going to make a new meal with her. It's going to debut on August 9th. They're hoping for the same success. I don't know. I feel like BTS is going to be an anomaly in this world. However, most of these celebrity meal things are pretty successful, and McDonald's recently said they've done very well in the last in Q2. They've had growth that they didn't expect, restaurant to restaurant and whatnot. Apparently, a lot of places still stagnant. The overall numbers for our economy did not grow anywhere near as much as I think the expectation was. It was like 2% off, 6 compared to 8% growth. We saw unemployment numbers tick up higher than we expected again, since there's so many jobs available. I think maybe even specifically at McDonald's, they probably have a whole lot of jobs that are unfilled right now. But the Sweetie Meal, it is essentially a Big Mac, a 4-piece chicken nugget, a medium fry, and a Sprite. There's tangy barbecue sauce that comes with it. The only reason I'm talking about this at all, because I imagine the amount that people care is probably very little, is how dumb this is. The celebrity meal at a McDonald's. And the fact that the last one had a chicken nugget that made $1 million. These things make me mad. One, the celebrity doesn't care. I'm not trying to ruin this, but it's kind of like if you go to your favorite social media page right now and think you're talking to the famous person that's there with the little check mark. Odds are you're not. Odds are you're talking to some kind of intern of some kind, if they talk to you at all, and you're certainly not talking to a celebrity. But these meals are just basic food items, probably items McDonald's wants to sell you that they're struggling to sell, and then they just sticker a celebrity's name on it, like NASCAR. This is the NASCAR version of fast food, and I'm not trying to hate on NASCAR. I'm just saying that I can't believe these things are succeeding this much. I continue to get confused by the things that some of the people in our country like. Things like YouTube. Recently, they said that they're doing better than Netflix as far as total revenue goes. I don't dislike YouTube per se, but I know a lot of young people who that's the only thing they consume. You ask them if they watched the recent TV show, if they saw the game, whatever the game could be, any sport, and they usually have some answer that involves YouTube if they saw anything at all. I work with one individual at another gig. He's in his early 20s, and every day he tells me all the stuff he's watching on YouTube, and I ask him if he's seen anything else have you been to the television? Have you been to anything? And he's like, nah, man, everything's there on the old YouTube. In other news, I saw this. A gator surprised a family in Florida. It's late at night. It's about 2 a.m. One thing I very much like about this story is the name of the dog. The husband and wife say that they woke up because their dog was barking. The dog's name is Capone, which is a sweet name. I have to picture like a pit bull or something named Capone, though. You can't go like Yorkie and say that's our dog Capone, that little tiny chihuahua right there. But 2 a.m., the dog starts barking. The guy wakes up. He flips on his porch light, and sitting outside on the doormat, an alligator, a giant gator. And what I also love about this story is that he calls the police. Police show up, but the gator's not responsive. It's thrashing around just outside this guy's house and not willing to leave. And so the police communicate through the window to the guy inside his house at like 3 o'clock in the morning that they're going to send out a trapper to come get the gator. And I guess, well, the trapper did eventually succeed. There might have been some damage to the house. But every part of that story, if I put myself in the shoes of the person, is kind of incredible, including, of course, naming my dog Capone. But waking up at 2 a.m., being confused why the dog's barking, flipping on the porch light and seeing an alligator stare right back at you, an angry alligator, would be amazing. And then we talk all the time about police and all these different things. And a lot of people out there in the world of hot take, in the world of social media, in the world of woke, say that police are something that are bad in this way or that way. And they're responding to an alligator at 3 a.m. Who else do you call? That's what this guy's reaction was. He goes, all right, this is one of the oddest things I've been a part of, even though I'm choosing to live in Florida, where this is probably most likely to occur compared to anywhere else in our country. I got to just call the police and get them to pop in. Other news in the world of animals, because I guess I'm all of a sudden doing a segment like that. There was a new study that said if you have bumblebees that you use to help with your crop production, which already, when I was reading the story, I'm like, I didn't know this was a thing. I didn't know that if I had a garden or if I was a farmer, that bees were something I might keep in order to help boost my crop production. But a new study found that if you caffeinate the bumblebees, they're going to do a better job at whatever the work is they're doing. And that sounded terrifying to me. I'm not saying that I'm afraid of a bumblebee, but if you have a whole bunch of them and they're all hopped up on caffeine, that feels like the beginning of an M. Night Shyamalan movie or something. I don't know how it ends, probably a stupid twist, but I just know that every part of that seems ridiculous. And also having that conversation with someone who's choosing to do it. I would love to be around a farmer who is caffeinating his bees. What are you doing there? I'm just getting the caffeine into the old bees so they get this production thing done. I mean, like the New York Times reported on this, among other people, and I just found this to be the most fascinating, stupid news I didn't have any idea was a thing of anything I've seen recently. I guess it's for food industries and other kinds of farming industries. But I would absolutely question every part of this if I was even in a family of farmers that were discussing this to take our farm to the next level. You know, we have bees, but they're not doing as much work as they want. Maybe we should caffeinate them, or maybe just like terrify them. Maybe you just get a world where you get very angry bees to do work. And it did beg one more question from me. What other industries would it be good to caffeinate animals to make them more productive? I imagine whatever the answer is, most of it would be pretty terrible in the world that, you know, we all live in. I don't think it makes sense. Like a circus, if you're like, the performers at our circus, the animal performers, they're not really getting the job done. Let's throw some Starbucks into the equation and see what happens. That sounds tremendously bad. Quick break, a lot more. Craig Collins filling in on the Chad Benson Show.
This is the Chad Benson Show. Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. Happy Friday. Chad will be back next week. Lots and lots to discuss. First, Dan Crenshaw is out there telling us, one, he's questioning a lot of the science in the latest decision by the CDC to tell us to mask back up. And then two, don't listen to anybody that throws a restriction your way. Here is Dan Crenshaw.
Yeah, so we had our staff go through the CDC's website and see what they were citing to justify the new mask mandate. And it turns out they're citing a single study from India. And that study, by the way, is assessing a vaccine that isn't approved in the U.S. It's assessing the AstraZeneca vaccine. We dug a little further, and it turns out that study was also rejected in peer review. They changed the status of rejection to revise the day of the CDC's announcement.
I do think that audio is interesting, and the reason why is I do agree that a lot of what's happening right now, a lot of these guidelines, these rules, these changes that are taking place are motivated more by a question the government asks itself and then asks the CDC, what gets more people vaccinated? What do we do that gets more jabs into arms? Do we take away mask requirements so that people go get the vaccine so they can take their mask off? Do we make people fight each other? Which is the idea now, because those who are vaccinated are going to be mad at those who aren't. It's like in school, honestly, when one kid misbehaves and the teacher takes away the prize from everybody. If you take away the prize from everybody, the rest of the class turns on the misbehaving kid. And again, I'm not saying that vaccine people who choose not to get the vaccine are misbehaving per se. I do think it's up to you. We live in a free country. I would choose to get it if it were me, but we live in a free country. Do you? I just think that this is that version. He also said that if there are mandates and things that get thrown out there, ignore them. I thought that was interesting.
So the CDC is in direct confrontation with the FDA. I believe the FDA on this one. I think they tend to be more risk averse, and so they tend to get the science a little bit more right more often. And I think the CDC has been politicized in this case, I think from pressure from the administration. Again, because I think the Democrats love to instill fear in the hearts of Americans. And I think Americans are really sick of this. They're over it. They're not going to comply. And you shouldn't comply with any more lockdowns, with any more mandates. None of it.
None of it. Just don't comply with any of it. One other quick thing on this, and then I will shift gears to something way less, sad, for lack of a better word. Brett Giroir, the former coronavirus testing czar for Donald Trump, for the Trump administration, said that if you don't have the vaccine and you haven't gotten coronavirus yet, you're going to get the Delta variant. This was a weird version of this conversation. A conversation I do remember happening before about the OG version of coronavirus. People saying that eventually over time everybody was going to get it. But this is the statement made by Brett Giroir, who, again, if you're identifying the team before listening to the advice, he played for the Donald Trump team.
The side effects of the vaccines pale in comparison to what you will get if you get COVID infection. And let me tell you, if you have not been vaccinated and you have not had COVID before, you will get the Delta variant. This is so infectious that you will get it. If you have had COVID before, we don't know exactly, but it's looking like prior immunity is not so good against Delta.
Cool. That's all very valuable, very fun, awesome information. I don't know when we get to stop reporting on all these things and just discuss normal everyday life again, but I look forward to that. Also, this story, Jetpack Guy is back in L.A., and I love Jetpack Guy. There's something about this story that is so wonderful to me. I'm sure the first part is the mystery of it. I never want to identify, and if someone has already identified Jetpack Guy, I don't want to know who it is. At this point, I still don't know. If you don't know anything about the story, there's a guy in Los Angeles who flies around LAX. He's been seen on video. He's been seen by pilots who call in and talk about it. It seems like he's riding a jetpack, just flying around the airport, being awesome, and then he goes home. And then he waits a little while and he does it again. The only thing that makes this story better, other than the mystery of who is Jetpack Guy, what's the technology he's using, how dangerous is it? A lot of people ask that question. The only thing that would make it better is if he started to fight crime. I really mean that. And not like big deal crime. I don't know that he's probably successful at that, but just little things. If he could just, stop a shoplifting one time or every so often, San Francisco would be a great place to target. Not much of a trip on a jetpack from L.A. To figure that out. And they're certainly looting and stealing things on a pretty constant basis there. Just knock one guy off of his bike. One of those guys who shoots out of the Walmart full of stuff, and just knock him down using your jetpack, and you go through the roof in popularity, sir. If the end result is to eventually sell this thing, I think you got to go that road. And the social media videos, some kind of costume, we would have a real-life superhero. It'd be our version of Iron Man because he's already built half the stuff. You just now need the impenetrable, suit of armor as well. But you got to get that done if you're Jetpack Guy. A Polish influencer decided to sell a non-fungible token. That is an NFT. What is an NFT, you just said? Because I still don't know what they are. It's kind of like Bitcoin, I guess. But it's something that's specific. It's usually something digital, and you sell it because it's rare. And I guess people pay a lot of money for it. She made up hers, which I find very confusing. Sometimes people sell a photo they took that went viral on social media, but she made up hers. She sold her digital love. That's the real headline, and it's not what you think. It was just the idea of digital love. She didn't sell a specific activity that would happen at some point on the internet, and that's as much as I'm going to say about it. She made $250,000 selling this product online to the highest bidder, 26 years old, Marta Rental. She's an attractive person. That's not up for debate. But the fact that you can sell something that doesn't exist in general, those digital things that get sold, and this one is just the idea of a thing is crazy to me. She did decide to go on a date with the anonymous buyer. I guess she said is kind of a reward for spending $250,000 on the most idiotic of things I've ever heard. She did also quote, she was quoted as saying, "Nothing on the internet is physical. It's all a part of the online persona." So a guy now owns this woman's digital love, and I guess gets to go on one date with her and not necessarily, have any sort of expectations going in because that wasn't even what he was bidding on. He didn't know about the date when he bought it. It's just it's the craziest story, and it also makes me very sad sometimes that I couldn't sell my digital love and it's for sale. I'm going to say that here. Chad Benson has a huge listening audience. I might as well take the opportunity. I am not Chad, by the way. Anybody who just tuned into the show and heard my digital love is for sale, please don't ask Chad how much his costs. This is Craig Collins, fill-in host, much less a high-profile individual, but it's certainly for sale. I'm a married man, so it's not going to be real love, and I don't know what you're going to get for it. But if you want to pay me for it, like you paid her, that's totally fine. A Dallas-based American Airlines employee is being praised online for turning away a customer. And this looked like it was actually at a boarding gate in the airport for calling a different employee, a different colleague, the B word. So a woman that's being called a Karen got mad. I don't know why she got mad, but the video, which I won't play the audio, there's a little bit of cursing still in it. But the woman gets very, very angry and calls one of the flight attendants, or not the flight attendants, one of the people standing at the gate, the B word. This other person comes over who may have been a supervisor, I think, and calmly told the woman she's not flying today. And a lot of people said, good job, way to go. This is how you handle a situation like this. I hate having a hot take on a story like this because you certainly can't go out there in the world, call people terrible things or use profane language and hope that everybody receives you well. That's not going to be a good life goal. That's not a good way to live your everyday life. But that being said, not getting to fly, having to rebook a flight, having to, go back to the checkout counter, do all that stuff, go back through security. This seems like a significant punishment for a crime a lot of people commit. A lot of people, I think, and not just Karens, quote unquote, but a lot of people get very angry and sometimes use very choice language at other people, people working in customer service. I once did have a customer service job of my own, and there was choice language that was thrown my way. And so I'm not saying the woman was right. I'm just saying that the punishment for the crime didn't seem to fit perfectly for me. And so many people praising it online demonstrates one thing to me. And I also hate to take this path on this story, but I can't not take it. I do think our younger generations, and I'm a millennial, by the way, for anyone wondering, so this is kind of self-hate, have less and less of a tolerance of anything. If you were out there in the world of customer service, you get an unruly customer that yells the B word at you, and then she's not allowed to fly and kind of banned from the flight that day. That feels to me to be somewhat of an overreaction, and I would wonder about my generation and the generation coming up after us, and if we ever had to do something like, say, fight in a war, if there was ever a conflict that actually had a tremendous amount of need, and I know that we are in some conflicts. I know these things still occur, and I know young people, brave young people, volunteer to serve. But if we ever got the draft version of life, I would be fearful for my generation and the generation that comes after us in having to deal with that world, because the fights we have right now are not the same fights generations before us were having. We are fighting a lot more about pumpkin spice lattes than maybe we should be, and other things like the decorations on a Starbucks cup. I have to take a break. A lot more. This is Craig Collins filling in on the Chad Benson Show.
Check out our Chad Benson Show Facebook page where you can hang out or hang your grievances out to dry. This is Chad Benson.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. A lot of people talk about how maybe there's a political divide for those who are getting the vaccine and those who aren't. And we often forget about the fact that a lot of young people who were told that they really weren't at risk of serious illness to begin with are probably also not getting the vaccine. And we don't necessarily question some of the logic that goes into that kind of thinking, or we don't talk about that anywhere near as much as the political divide part of the conversation. Here is a case in point, though, where a young person might not be the clearest of thinker. And I'm not saying everybody. I've met a lot of very, logical, very mature behaving 20-somethings. They're not all the same, though. A guy in Florida decided while he was at a Jacksonville zoo to jump over a fence and then claw back at a jaguar that was clawing at an enclosure he was in. I have audio from two different zoo workers talking about this experience, and I do want to relate the two ideas. Some young people, I remember even myself, I'm in my 30s now, but when I was in my 20s, I felt like I was kind of invincible, and I did some dumb things. This might be a huge part of the vax-no-vax equation, and I just would love to play this audio maybe at a White House press briefing and see how someone would respond to this. If the question was, young people might not get vaccinated, they also sometimes go after jaguars.
The jaguar was pawing at the fencing, and he went to paw at the fencing and apparently got injured.
An individual in his 20s jumped over the fence area and decided to try to interact with one of our jaguars. It looks like it was significant injury.
The kindest way anyone ever describes a decision to, attack or interact with an animal that can kill you is to say it that way. They had an interaction. They got in the same space for an amount of time. But I just want to take us back for a second. Again, we're curious as to why maybe parts of our population aren't doing something like get a vaccine. At least some people are. And outside of just the fact that it's a freedom, it has been politicized. There's so many questions and conversations we can go with that. There's also this idea that there's a lot of younger people who weren't afraid before, who were packing beaches, who were doing all this stuff. And to put our head in the brain of 24-year-old Florida guy, you climb a fence staring at a jaguar, and the entire time your brain is telling you, this is a great idea. I'm going to totally paw back at this guy. You keep, the activity isn't instant. I sometimes think that I could make a stupid mistake if it takes a half second to make the wrong decision, but this is a much longer version of dumb mistake. And then you still put your hand in the enclosure, you get attacked, non-life-threatening injuries. The guy was brought to the hospital after this. But there we go. You just show that video on local news throughout the country, and then everybody understands the issues we're facing, and we just move on. And I'm not trying to blame just young people, by the way. I'm just saying that that's a conversation we're not having as far as part of this thing goes. A 45-year-old woman in Germany found out that she had won the lottery. She bought a ticket. She kind of forgot about it, left it in her purse. She had picked all the numbers correctly. It was a pretty significant lottery. She won $39 million. $39 million. And she had carried that winning ticket around in her purse like an everyday item for weeks. When she finally found out that she had won, I guess she finally decided to check the ticket, or maybe even a family member had asked her if she had won the lottery. She was quoted as saying she got dizzy about the thoughts that she had carelessly walked around with that much money for that amount of time. And if you had just lost it, the purse or anything, man, how devastating would that be? All right, I have another Olympic story. I am watching a lot of Olympics currently. I do feel like this story is a little bit outside of the Olympics, and I am going to have to use the name for a contraceptive. I apologize for that, but I don't think there's any rules against it. An Australian Olympian, she's a kayaker, had to act quickly when her kayak broke. She was very much favored to win that event. She had won it 2 other Olympics before this. Her name is Jessica Fox, or Jess Fox. The front of her kayak broke. The nose of it broke. Her team put some things on it, I guess, to help straighten that out, but they needed something to hold the replacement pieces together, the carbon finish together. They used one of the contraceptives given to them, condom given to them at the Olympic Games, which apparently gets given to all athletes every Olympics to raise awareness for all kinds of things. They used it to repair the kayak, and then they won the race. She placed first. She won a gold. She had interestingly, so many questions from that story. The first one being, who had this on them to begin with? What member of the team had this ability to fix the problem with this thing that they were given? Who was carrying it around? I definitely want to know that question. But I would be thrilled at that point to win the Olympics. I would not want to tell that story to anybody in my life after the Olympic event. So how'd you do? If any of your friends and family don't catch it, don't know, and they ask you that question, well, we had a problem. The kayak got damaged a little bit, but we came up with an interesting solve, and I feel prouder for it. I think you would also keep it, by the way. You'd probably use it as well, no, hold on. That's not what I meant. You'd probably keep it for sentimental purposes, display it along with the gold medal. There'd be a lot of things that, might make sense there. This conversation is already getting me in trouble. 69% of Americans have snacks on them at all times. That's a different survey. Probably should have done that story instead. Quick break, a lot more. Craig Collins filling in on the Chad Benson Show.
The Chad Benson Show.
Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. Chad will be back next week. Happy Friday. Karine Jean-Pierre gave the last of the press briefings yesterday. She talked about the border with Peter Doocy, There actually was a hilarious moment, in my opinion, where it sounded like an alarm and or a fax machine went off, and I think it caused some nice levity for everybody involved. And actually, I will say this about Jean-Pierre, too. I think she handled her interaction with Peter Doocy much better than Jen Psaki does. Jen Psaki will show disdain for people that she thinks the questions are dumb, for people that she thinks the questions are motivated by other things, which is silly, in my opinion, to say the very least of it, because you're a press secretary answering press questions. It shouldn't matter what they're motivated by when asking. I'm not saying that there aren't performative questions. Certainly, Jim Acosta was one to perform a lot when he would ask questions of the last administration. But the idea that that means you answer it differently is odd. We should always get the truth, no matter what the question is. Jean-Pierre doesn't seem to have that problem, although she does do these less often, of course. Here is the interaction about the border and about the concern of COVID-19 for people who are crossing into the country illegally and then just getting catched and released somewhere into our society, and wondering whether or not that could cause part of this uptick.
And last one, just because you talk about this administration having a priority of protecting the American people, can you help us understand why is it that the federal government is asking vaccinated Americans to wear masks to stop the spread of COVID-19, but at the same time, federal agents are also releasing COVID-19 positive border crossers into small towns in Texas? How is that?
Well, let's step back for a second, because this is very interesting. I'm sure everything's fine.
I have to be honest. Part of this makes me laugh so much, not just because in that moment, and maybe when Jen is the press secretary, or just in general, that an alarm going off in the back if a question is asked wrong is funny, but more for the current president of the United States. I mean, he jokes all the time about how his staff doesn't want him to answer questions beyond a certain number, or doesn't want him to linger and talk to reporters when he's not allowed to. I think they need to audio train him. I think you need to do the sound train version, much like Pavlov's dog, and be like, nope, come on, the alarm's going off. You got to go, Mr. President. I do think that we could get there. Maybe it's the Astros version of a thing, too. Maybe he just wears something on his person that vibrates to tell him to walk away, much like when they were cheating and winning games against my New York Yankees. All right, continue.
It could be. But, you did laugh at my joke, so maybe that's a reaction to laughing at my joke. Okay, so I just want to be very clear here. I do want to answer your question, Peter. First, just to step back and do this 30,000-foot view, there's been no change in Title 42. Families and single adults are expelled, if possible, when apprehended at the southern border. The majority of apprehensions that we saw at the border in June were expelled. Those who can't be expelled or are awaiting processing are often placed in alternatives to detention programs while their cases are being reviewed.
It's that last sentence that matters the most. Alternatives to detention programs, which kind of means, and I think definitely means, catch and release. And that is what they're doing with a lot of the people that they're apprehending at the border, and much more so than any administration, I think, in the history of this country, because they're having more people cross the border than ever before. The surge is crazy, but the amount of people that are being caught and then told to report to ISIS, in which something like 13% actually do, and then released into the United States, are a big part of the question, I think, from Doocy to begin with. Our president, Joe Biden, who, by the way, does need to start wearing that Astros signal thing, was asked a question by a reporter about the mask change. He had said just a little while ago that if you were vaccinated, you did not need to wear a mask. Now, of course, he, as well as the CDC and others, are saying that's changed. His answer said that the Delta variant's the problem, and I'll play it for you. But I just think it's so interesting because the science really doesn't support anything he says, and I do wonder if his staff had wished that he just walked past this reporter.
President, you said if you are fully vaccinated, you no longer need to wear a mask. And it seems...
I have said they're fully vaccinated.
I just love the first part, too, that he's like, nah, I didn't say that. I don't actually remember saying that, so I believe what I'm saying right now. I did not say that.
An area where we do not have... Well, let me clarify.
In May, you made it sound like a vaccine was the ticket to losing the mask forever. And
that is true at the time, because I thought there were people who were going to understand that getting vaccinated made a gigantic difference.
He does say that getting vaccinated made a gigantic difference if you can't make out the audio. And he did say that it was true back in May that he didn't have to wear a mask, but it's not true anymore. We all know the actual cause of all this is just trying to get more people vaccinated. And this is the latest move by a politicized CDC to go down that road. Punish those who are vaccinated and see if it gets more people to get the vaccine. Google banned a interesting dating app from its Google Play Store. I guess that niche dating apps are a new thing. More and more of them are popping out, not just the farmers-only version, but all different kinds of approaches to getting a very small amount of people that are interested in dating on a very specific, in a very specific kind of thing, to be on the same platform and find each other. And I guess that kind of makes sense, although I guess you can go rogue in that world. Case in point, Google had to ban an app that was designed for sugar daddy dating. This is where a guy offers, not necessarily, it's weird, it's confusing, and I don't know how much I want to explain it on the radio, but a guy offers financial support for someone he's in a relationship with, and that is one of the expectations of the relationship. There are not others, but that's a part of it. That's all I know about it. I read that in the report. No one questioned why I know those kind of things. But they said at Google that they updated their inappropriate content policy, and because of that, they decided to ban a few of these high-profile apps that are in the sugar dating world. I guess that is one of the niches that is not allowed. Seeking Arrangement was the name of the app you can no longer download. Very, very odd story, to say the least. But I guess in the world of the dating part of it, not the sugar part of it, I guess it does make sense that if you're on an app that has just everybody, that it's probably hard to weed down the candidates to the ones you're most interested in. So why not get a smaller group involved? A woman actually wound up in a relationship after a dangerous gym fail that went viral on social media. The woman's name on TikTok is Fit by Ash. I guess she works out all the time. She was hoping to go viral as a gym influencer, which is a thing I didn't know existed. But while she was doing a squat at what looks like a Planet Fitness, she buckled under the weight of the bar that she had on her body and started to fall to the ground. And then miraculously, and it's a video, it's out there, it's been seen some 7 million times by people on the platform, a guy who is also at the gym swoops in and lifts the bar off her body, kind of like Thor, lifts the entire thing off, I think, with one arm. And they are now potentially dating. The internet world is smitten with this whole story. They want to know a bunch of updates on it. I do have one recommendation for Fit by Ash and her new potential boyfriend. If you really want to suck people into the story of this, you got to do the will they, won't they part. You can't just go right into the dating. I know he saved your life at the gym, and I know you were trying to be a gym influencer, which obviously you made a mistake when you almost hurt yourself at the gym. That's probably not a person you want to follow anymore for those kind of things. But you need to play this out. You need to pretend as though the relationship's not immediately taking off for quite some time, because that ropes in more of the audience. And apparently this is how people get their entertainment in certain generations. They don't watch anything on TV. They just watch TikTok and other things like that. A doppelganger for Leonardo DiCaprio. This guy's out of Sweden. Apparently is very, very popular. The guy's 21 years old. He makes money off of his resemblance to the star. People cannot get enough of him, quote unquote, on all forms of social media. And his skyrocket to fame in that world, I guess, is unique enough to be covered in some different news things that I check out. When I read this story, I have this reaction about a lot of things that are right now a part of our society as far as, internet culture is concerned, but also legitimate amounts of money and career path. Because this guy is now making a lot of money, according to an article that I found, based on the fact that he looks like somebody else and he has a social media profile. That's all he does. He takes photos where he looks like another person. He has no right to his fame. I have to be honest. There's nothing about him that should be followed, that needs to be followed, and no reason that he can make a bunch of money on the ads on the social media sites he's on. But that is what it takes in our current society. When cash is getting thrown at all kinds of crazy things, you have someone who just looks like somebody else make money off of that. And I know that we used to do that before, but you had to work at it a little. You had to actually show up at Times Square or somewhere in order to get those photos done. You had to make an appearance. Now you just have to pop a photo up on social media from your phone and boom, career. I wonder if he brags to like his family and friends about what he's doing. If they're all talking about how they've, found different career paths as they get older. This guy is 21. And he's like, yeah, man, I'm working pretty hard at mine. I look like Leonardo DiCaprio online. That's what I do. And some of those pictures, they don't look just like him. So I got to take him a second time and make sure I lean in just the right direction to get it correct. So I keep making that sweet, sweet cash that I'm making on this life. I don't understand. I got to take a break. A lot more. Craig Collins filling in on the Chad Benson Show.
Running with scissors sounds great compared to this.
Say what? This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. Lots to discuss, lots to talk about out there in the world. I don't know if you ever had this experience before. You pop on the old internet. I imagine actually a lot of people have because, this is the way we all live our lives. You're out there for some valuable reason, something important, something you'd like to discuss or like to find out more information on. And then all of a sudden, something else pops up in front of you, and you can't help but click on it. I like to call this clickbait confessions. I think we might have music for this moment. I have to admit, when I click on these stories that I shouldn't click on. I went on the internet. All I wanted to know about was the COVID restrictions, the vaccine requirements, and the mask requirements in my community. And I saw an article. The headline was, at 48 years old, Heidi Klum and her sculpted abs look stronger than ever in new bikini pics. I clicked on it. I have to be honest with you. They do look pretty good. Heidi Klum is still keeping it pretty nice. And I don't know why this got me, but this article definitely did. And I just think by talking about it a little bit more, getting it out there in the world, I'm helping all of us get over this problem. Darn you, Yahoo News. Darn you. And Heidi Klum and her sculpted abs. Thank you for that. I very much enjoyed that. And if you have one too, go ahead and blow up Chad's social media page. Chad Benson can be found on Facebook, on Twitter, anywhere. Tell me your clickbait confession. Something that I don't know why they do this all the time. The internet, just real quick for a second. They pick a random female celebrity. The female celebrity is at least 40, if not 50, 60 years old. And they talk about something that celebrity recently put up on a social media page. And they say that she looks great for her age. And then people go and look at the photos. They just do. I don't know what it is, but she's the last one to get me. I actually had another one, too. Former most beautiful girl sported rocking bikini. I guess there's someone that used to be called the most beautiful girl. She's only 20, and she's out of France. I don't know why she's already not considered that, but she had topped some beautiful lists, I guess, in another country. I clicked on that article, too. All because of Joe Biden. I'm blaming him. Darn it, Biden, and the masks that you are now requiring us to wear, and the silly articles out there in the world that wind up roping me in anyway. All right, in other news, Taco Bell is giving 100 people free tacos for a year. This seems wonderful as far as an offer goes. They're running a contest, and the 100 people will win a year's supply of free tacos. It's one of the one-year anniversary loyalty program things they've been doing, I guess. You have to be a rewards member first. You got to sign up for that. You then just have to buy something in person and use the app and scan the barcode. It runs through August 18th. I hate the fact that I'm now giving them a free commercial. The one thing I thought was very interesting, though, about the free crunchy taco, one per day for a year grand prize, is the actual monetary value of it. So say you download the app, you go to the store, you buy something, and you're excited because you get free food for a year. It actually only comes to about $547.50 total over the course, because you just get one crunchy taco, which costs less than $1. You get that every day for as many days as you can't do two, but you can't go to two stores and do two. You got to wait till the next day. And honestly, no one eats one crunchy taco if you try to feed yourself at a Taco Bell. So it does seem like a reckless version of a thing. In other food news, a hack for loading a Pez dispenser. These are sentences I never thought I'd say, and yet I'm saying them on the radio. Went viral on social media. The hack essentially showed you the way to load a Pez dispenser from the bottom. You'd put the package in, you wouldn't open it or anything, you'd squish it, and then all of a sudden your Pez would magically be correctly placed. One, I didn't know people still ate this candy. I remember this candy growing up as a kid, but I can't remember the last time I saw it in a store. And two, it's just a lie. Pez had to come out and tell people you cannot do it that way, and you will break things if you try. But social media made it go viral. I saw it shared on a lot of places I am, on my Facebook page by friends of all ages, and how cool it was and how it doesn't work at all. Pez then put up a different video of how to load all of its candy into the little thing at the same time, and it was way, way harder. You have to essentially hold it all after opening it up and do what we all tried and failed to do, which was, but just more important than anything in regard to that story specifically is the idea that Pez is still a candy that people care about. I had no idea. A new story, a new thing that is, I guess, causing a shortage in the world of the pandemic. We're seeing a lot of shortages, a lot of supply chain issues. And sometimes you wonder if any of that is purposeful. China is responsible for the computer chip shortage. They are probably also acutely aware that a computer chip shortage can hurt our economy. So if I were China, not that I would ever want to be, I would imagine how much of this you manufacture on purpose to slow down the economic growth of places you'd like to see not grow as fast as you. But I digress. This story is about license plates. Apparently, because of a shortage of material, license plates may be harder to get, specifically in the state of Washington, but maybe other places as we go here. This is something that is being reported on by a couple different news organizations out there. And I don't have a big reaction to that other than thinking about how the supply chain issue continues to hamper our economy, an economy that now will deal with remasking a lot of places, required vaccinations in some places of work, and then so on and so on. The economic growth isn't what we thought it would be. Unemployment numbers are higher than every single problem that we've thought we were having just continues to happen and doesn't get any better. And then you hear stories like this, where we're having shortages again. I do hope we don't get to the world where everybody's rushing out to buy toilet paper again, because that was a very challenging time, specifically for me, because I am not fast to the grocery store. And it definitely became a thing that you got to have it. You got to find a way to get it. I don't want that to be a world we get into more, because I can see that absolutely impacting we have to grow out of all the different slowdowns that is our society right now and the ways in which we get back to normal. And it's not just wearing masks and stuff. It's finding a way for everyday normal life to not be impacted at all. It's a quick break, a lot more. Greg Collins filling in on the Chad Benson Show.
This is the Chad Benson Show. Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. Chad will be back next week. A new poll shows that Biden's approval rating is in a full-on nosedive. President Biden's approval rating has plummeted 20 points since he gained office, according to a Monmouth University poll released yesterday. Biden entered office in January with a net approval rating of plus 24, but now sits at just plus 4, according to the poll. The Monmouth poll is the second to show Biden's approval rating slipping to an all-time low, and this is probably only going to get worse, in all honesty. There's also a story out there about Kamala Harris being a potential thorn in the side of Democrats during the midterm elections because of her very unpopular kind of position right now in the world of politics. Certainly some of the high-profile things she's been involved in recently have not gone the way that anyone hoped that they would go. Going in. It is interesting to see those numbers continue to trend a certain direction because if you remember, during the last guy's time in office, one of the big things was that his handling of the COVID pandemic was the reason that he started to lose his kind of, I guess more. A lot of people thought that he would win re-election, and then coronavirus hit, and that was a huge cause in the doubting. And then obviously what seems to be the eventual loss of that election probably could be tied a lot to the things like economy downturning and whatnot. The new guy getting into office, the big promise was COVID would be handled totally differently. It would be way less confusing. Everything would be made much more public. We have different problems, but the same overall issue, I think. The approval rating continues to go down as the economy continues to not rebound, as discussions on infrastructure bills get confusing. I will say real quickly about the infrastructure bill thing. This is probably the biggest reason I hate politics. Out of all the reasons to dislike things in the world of politics compared to everywhere else, the dishonesty, all the ways in which people handle themselves, this is probably the worst of the worst. You have Republicans wanting a very specific form of a bill. There's things that they want to support. So you have Democrats allowing them to do it, I guess, and going along with one bill that will be passed, that will be bipartisan, and that will be a portion of the overall funding for the infrastructure bill. Then you'll have a second bill that'll get passed totally by Democrats that'll spend a lot more money on a lot of sillier things, and they'll just call it budget reconciliation, and they'll be like, all right, job well done all. And the only reason they're doing this separate and allowing one to get passed one way and one to get passed another way is because of the optics of it, the political optics for both sides. Democrats want to claim they're reaching across the aisle and working with Republicans, so anything Republicans are willing to put their signatures on as well, Democrats are cool with. So that when we run for re-election or when we run for any new office, the Democrats and Biden can say, we passed this, we passed that, we did it bipartisan, but it's not real. It'd be like if you got a job and they offered you maybe two positions at once, and then you're only going to get paid for one position. You're like, I don't know. This seems to be weird. This seems to not make sense, be unfair. That is the case that we're having right now. We have two things passing in tandem, or, well, not close to passing yet. There's still going to be a lot of arguing, but inevitably when we get there, and honestly, only one will really be what everybody wants. The other one will just be because they can. There is a logo out already for the 2024 Olympics. They are happening in Paris. It looks like a woman. It looks like it's a golden kind of face only. It's got hair. It's got lips. That's all it is. And it kind of also looks like a flame if you want to look at it a different way. So depending on who passes the Rorschach test and what you think it looks like, it's either a woman or a flame. People are attacking this already on social media and calling it a Karen. This lifeless photo that is connected to the logo for the upcoming Olympics in Paris in 2024. I think the Karen term might have jumped the shark. And I think this is the moment we can go back to say, all right, for some people, everything's a Karen. When you can say, and I'm not trying to defend Karens per se, I think that'd probably be a hot take for the radio, but it's the oddest thing that so many people say, how could you possibly support Karens and put a Karen logo out there in the world? I don't even know how that could be what this is. It's a lifeless, it's a flame is what I think it's intent to be, or it's a lifeless golden version of a face. It looks like an emoji at best. This can't absolutely and at all be someone who's yelling at someone else in a public place, which is what a Karen is. Obviously, usually a white woman for whatever reason. Social media goes that way. But this is the dumbest, and I just wanted to say it on the radio. A man was slammed on social media for changing his mind about a proposal because of his mom. This is another story that, and maybe it's not totally, because there's only a portion of the video out there, so maybe it's not being shared or actually exactly accurate, but this is what the claim is. A guy asked his dad to start recording a video. He was going to propose to his girlfriend. He indicates in the video that he's got a ring in his pocket. You then hear his mom saying, no, 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 at some point. I don't know if she was made aware of what the situation was going to be going in or at that moment. And the guy then decides not to propose in the video. He turns around and walks away, and the woman is left there kind of wondering what's going on. Yeah, this is a bad look all around for this individual, for this guy. A lot of people on social media telling him that they feel sorry for the woman and or they feel happy that she's not going to get tied down to this dude. You got to make your own decisions. I hope that I'm speaking to the choir when I say that, but if you were going the road of social media TikTok proposal and your mom kiboshed it and you still put that video up on the internet, There's a lot of problems with every part of that. Although I do wonder, just a side piece to all this is he was getting her to stand up on, a little additional railing thing that looked like it might have been somewhat dangerous. Maybe Ma was just worried about the danger factor that has not been addressed yet on social media, and people might be overreacting to what this is. But if this is what they think, it's definitely something that needs to be worked out at home, or you just ignore it. I can't imagine what it would be like to marry someone that a family member, a parent, would desperately not want you to marry. But again, you got to live your own life. I just thought that was tremendously odd. One other quick story here. A guy found an account change on his Netflix account that just seems very, very mean. So the dude shared a Netflix account with his wife. I guess they were separated, according to this post on a social media site on Reddit. And then the guy tried to log into his Netflix account and couldn't get in, but he also saw the name of the account had been changed, not just the email. And the name of the account had been changed to Guy Blanking Your Wife. That's a real thing. Another person, and I don't know what this is about Netflix or about those streaming platforms and how they get shared between family members. I know that people share them with parents and whatnot. You can all log in from different locations. I know that there was once a story I talked about a guy trying to get a girlfriend back by changing the name of the Netflix account they shared to be apologies for whatever fight they were in after she broke up with him. This is about as mean, about as awful as it gets. You're just trying to pop in to watch a little bit of whatever TV show you want to binge watch, and you can't get in, and the name of the account has been changed to something awful. The guy did say on social media that he had been separated, so maybe it wasn't completely. The other person's terrible. These are two awful humans that I just talked about in the world. A guy who can't propose because Ma doesn't want him to, and another guy who has to change the name of a Netflix account just to troll the not even divorced yet ex of the guy he's now with. I don't know. We all need a timeout in the world. I've talked about this before. I think it's true for social media. I think it's true for a lot of things. I think news of the day, the political news, also is something that gets over our heads too much. People are beating the crap out of each other on airplanes now, more so than before. And then you got one person trolling another person via a very specific online platform. It just all needs to, we need a break as an entire society, a timeout. I've said before that I think the Biden administration would be willing to pay for this. They're willing to pay for everything else. I don't want to egregiously spend money at the same time. Spot A for everybody sounds better than another stimulus check, and definitely some of these people could use it. Quick break, a lot more. This is Craig Collins filling in on the Chad Benson Show.
Being antisocial sucks. Hang with Chad's friends on Facebook, The Chad Benson Show. And if you just need some alone time, head on over to Twitter at Chad Benson Show. Either way, we can't wait to meet the real you.
This is The Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. Chad will be back next week. Thrilled to have you with us. The Nancy Pelosi rule that you got to mask up to be a member of the House is getting a lot of pushback. A bunch of House GOP members held a protest of sorts, held a march of sorts, demanding that this get removed. An estimated 40 to 50 Republicans took part in the demonstration, including a few of the caucus members. The Capitol attending physician also announced earlier this week that those mask mandates were once again in effect in the House, and then actually demonstrated a couple times that he wasn't wearing a mask. There were a few situations where he crossed paths with other people and was like, it'll be fine. I'm fine. I'm not supposed to put this on right now. The Nancy rule is 100% an optic thing and a dumb political thing and a thing that was designed to cause the fight that it's causing. There is a desire, so tremendously so, for Democrats to have the fight between who cares about you and who doesn't be determined by a lot of silly things. This also is true about the testimony, the conversations going on about January 6th. I will say this about the audio from the Capitol Police who testified, and some of them definitely the world of throwing out some political opinion while also testifying and talking about their experience that day. But this is all designed to drum up the emotional side of the conversation and not the side that has anything to do with discovering or finding out any of the things they claim to be investigating. That's not the point. There has already been an impeachment trial. There's already been a lot of conversations in that world. So now all that we want to do, if we're someone on the left, if we're someone who's a Democrat, is make sure voters remember just how emotionally difficult or crazy or challenging this day was for the police officers serving on the Capitol. And what's honestly interesting about this whole direction in this conversation, the optic version of it, you could do this in a lot of other places and have it be a Republican talking point and not a Democratic one, and not one targeting the former president of the United States. You could do this in any place, any city that's seeing a huge uptick in violence. You could talk to the officers fighting that violence every day while their funding is shrinking, while the public is turning against them in a lot of these big city places. And you could talk about how horrific it is for any one of them to be involved in a shooting or any kind of violent act. A police officer's job is hard. There's no denying that. A lot of the conversations we have about police neglect the idea that when they do their job well, it doesn't go viral. If a police officer is called to a interaction between members of a community, and the interaction is escalating to a degree that you need to call the police, and they go calm everybody down, nobody reports that. That doesn't show up that's not on any news story that day. Police officers successfully calmed down two people that were about to harm each other. That's not a story. And that happens 99, I assume, percent of the time that police get called, as well as when they get called for things that aren't quite that level of danger. They also do their job incredibly well there. We only talk about the failure of police officers and the things that we can perceive as the public to be criminal or abusive acts of the power of being a police officer, which are very few and far between, even if some of them are legitimately things that should be addressed. There's so few of those that occur, and we have that conversation all the time. What's also interesting, and I will play the audio from the Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey, the discussion about things like removing the funding for police and the uptick in violence and all these conversations we're having is probably further increasing the violence, because not only are you potentially removing a budget some places, but you're broadcasting that to those who might have been intent on committing crimes or thinking about it anyway. And here's just the quick acknowledgement that this is probably a problem.
It's just the reality of the situation. You know, when you make big overarching statements that we're going to defund or abolish and dismantle the police department and get rid of all the officers, there's an impact to that.
Yes, there absolutely is an impact to that. And this whole thing about mask wearing now, to go back to the conversation about politicians and what Nancy Pelosi is trying to force the House to do, it's just designed to cause conflict and emotional responses to the news of the day, the stories of the day. And that's just because people believe in political circles that emotion gets you more active than just facts do. We believe that about everything. All these discussions we have. So it's just tremendously interesting to be in this odd world right now in which the desire for those in power is to push you into a more emotional state at a time when we're a tremendously emotional society already. I mean, you got viral audio of a guy getting into a conflict at a McDonald's. This dude threw a tirade at a McDonald's, got mad at staff, I think because he probably didn't get his chicken nugget. I don't know what it was specifically, but these kind of fights, these kind of things too, and I could play the audio, but I'm not gonna. They're going viral every day as well. So we're just finding ourselves in this weird version of society in which, you know, a lot of people are pushing us a certain direction for any sort of political reason, and it's causing a lot of turmoil. And they don't seem to really care about that problem at all. All right, there's other news out there in the world, there's a lot of other things that I need to get to. I saw this story, and there's a version of the audio out there that's played up and kind of silly, but a cat got people in trouble. I've always said I love the hot take that dogs are better than cats. One, because it's true. I mean, come on. Anybody that debates this knows that a dog at your front door smiling and looking at you when you open it every day for every day that you have them is better than a cat who doesn't seem to care about you at all. But this story I liked a lot. A police department in Spain was called because of a noise complaint late on a Saturday night. They get to a house, speakers are blaring, music going crazy. They start pounding on the door, can't get anybody in. They find out when they finally do get into the home that it's just a cat that turned on a stereo system and was rolling up the volume, playing with it like it was a yarn, kind of thing dangling in front of them. A cat essentially trolled the whole neighborhood. I don't ever have stories like this about dogs. These are the only things I find about cats. I always like to add to stories like this that I once saw a study that said cats want to kill you. They're just too small and know it, so that's why they don't do it. Like any other predator animal out there that they're in the family of, cats want to take your life. They just know that they'd lose that fight, so they leave you alone. But I love this story. I'm honestly kidding a little. I'm not trying to fully hate on the cat. That's fine. I had a cat growing up, but I like dogs better. There's a lot of other things out there in the news, too. A man shot a refrigerator in self-defense, air quotes, after something exploded inside it in Washington. The guy woke up because a soda can blew up and fired shots at his fridge. That's the world we live in. Quick break, a lot more. Craig Collins filling in on the Chad Benson Show.
The Chad Benson Show.
Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. Happy to have you with us. Chad is back next week. A lot of people are discussing the CDC requirement on masks in schools. Masks for students, masks for teachers, masks all around in places of education. Certainly it's going to cause a lot of friction, a lot of issues. It may lead us back towards some of the worlds of remote learning as opposed to in-person learning in a lot more places throughout the country. A lot of educators are saying that kids essentially had half a year or even a whole year off in their education. Some people hiring tutors over the summer to try to catch their kids up to get education back on track going into this year. But there's a couple other stories that have been in the news the last week in the world of education that make it even more intriguing to think about the way in which students are trying to get back to normal life, get back to school, and get back to learning things. The first one, and this was from CBS News earlier this week, talked about an investigation into cheating, especially in colleges, especially for remote learning situations, in which Americans go to a website and they buy their essays, they buy a bunch of the work that they need done from, I guess, a writer in Kenya. So I guess there's a business in between of some kind, whether it's located here or abroad, that takes a certain amount of money, like $50 per essay or so, and then pays like $5 to the writer of the essay who's in a different country, and sometimes writing the essay, depending on what other countries that these writers are coming from, that's not even in their native language, and doing pretty well, doing well enough for students to keep going back to this platform. A lot of things were said to me as far as that goes. One, how terrible it is to essentially pay for student loans, get a college education, and then also pay for someone else to do your school. How awful it is for a lot of our educational systems, for someone that definitely doesn't go to class there or even live in our country, to pass these things and pass them well. But the fact that cheating just runs even more rampant along all educational levels when you have remote learning. Kids don't learn anything, and they just like look up and Google, or I guess there's even some applications out there that help you get this done. So that's one concern. I also saw that there's a new approach to education that may or may not be gaining steam. There's a few different examples of this playing out in certain ways. One is actually to play educational board games, physical board games in classes, so that you teach kids a bunch of different things all at once. The first one is maybe combining some of the educational subjects all into the same game. The second one is putting down any kind of technology and interacting physically with something and with the people around you, all something you obviously can't do in a remote learning situation. But apparently, as far as kids today go, and the attention span being just obliterated, not that it was good when I was a kid. I certainly struggled to pay attention in class, but it's gotten much, much worse because of all the things out there. But you're improving and fixing a lot of those challenges in this interactive environment. There's also this story about Dr. Dre. Dr. Dre will be opening a high school in Los Angeles. He'll be opening it in an area of Los Angeles that probably is in need of more unique education or just education in general. But it will also use interdisciplinary teaching and actually tie to some hip hop stuff as well to teach kids things like math and science together, because apparently that causes, a greater understanding of all those things when it's not individually taught as different. So I thought all of this was so interesting and intriguing when we're also talking about the idea that our educational system right now is one of the hardest hit in a unique way, maybe not hardest hit in a financial way like businesses and whatnot, but just the challenge of it in such a unique way because of coronavirus and all these up and down requirements. And if you're a parent who believes in the vaccine and you worry for your kids' safety, kids are tremendously unlikely, even without a vaccine, to have serious illness from COVID-19. That's just true. And even the Delta variant. But I'm not judging you. I get it, whatever way you want to be on that topic. It's just so intriguing to think that this challenge is so significant in the world of education and that, kids are as confused as ever. How would it feel? And I'm not a parent, so I have to envision this without the reality of it. From the kid's perspective, to be around, out and about with their parents, parent not wearing a mask, kid has to wear one if you're following the CDC guideline. They get dropped off in school, the only place where they can interact with people their own age, and all those kids are also wearing masks and protecting themselves, some sort of pandemic-y thing that the kid probably doesn't totally understand is the big concern there. But the parents are not doing the same thing when they're interacting on their own. If they're interacting with friends and other adults, they don't throw on masks for that part of the equation, I guess, unless you listen to most extreme of examples out there. So this is now the way that we're telling it to a child, only really scary for them and no one else, and that masks have to be worn in these. I don't think the anxiety, all the things that would go into it would make it a very valuable educational atmosphere in general. And we just avoid those topics. We just forget about those things, much like we forgot about the economy in a way when we were talking about a response to the pandemic that included shutting everything down. We just continue to not think of the ramifications of the decisions that we make or the ones that are advised from organizations like the CDC and the negative impact they would have on the industries or the individuals that are caught up in it. And this is definitely the case in the world of education. Cheating, remote learning, all those things are already a problem. And now you're just putting a lot of children who follow this guideline into a weird world where they feel most at risk of their physical safety at school. That's where they fare. And we already had violence and other things being concerns and issues, teaching kids how to duck under their desks and whatnot. And now we're expecting them all to go to class, the only place that they have to mask up, really, in a lot of environments, and be okay with that. Great plan, us. In other news, Joe Biden seems to think that Fox News is actually Fax News. I don't know what this says about him. I have audio of this. I thought it was interesting. He didn't correct the mistake. He just casually called them Fax News. I don't know where the confusion is. Is it related to fax and the fax machine? Is it just a misspeaking moment? What is it? Here we go.
Alabama Republican Governor Kay Ivey recently spoke out to encourage vaccination, and even the commentators on Fax who have been belittling this for a long time.
Even though commentators on Fax, I know he's got a speech thing. I'm not trying to make fun of that per se, but it was so clearly articulated, it just seemed odd to me that it was something that maybe you made a mistake on for whatever reason. Maybe you just stumbled into it. Maybe you don't really care anymore. Maybe it's a very articulate way to describe what you think is a dated thing. Much like the fax machine not used anymore. Maybe he thinks I'm trying very hard to figure out what the avenue there was, but I did very much like the flub, to say the very least about it, because, it's just kind of a thing. I want to touch on this one more time because I really do love this story. And I do wonder, maybe tied to pandemic and spending and all the terrible things that are wreaking havoc on our economy, if there'd be a silver lining in this plan that I'm throwing out there again. But the jetpack man out of L.A., that's flying around the airport there is one of my favorite stories of the last year plus. And whether or not he does more of his own thing remains a mystery. Captivated by all of that. I would love to see this technology get out into the world in the near future so we could have a lot more jetpack people. I don't know if we have some sort of incentive to buying this kind of thing. I don't know if it's actually valuable to those that say we need to find other ways to commute. I am not sure, but it's just the most fascinating of stories, and the idea that this guy has a working jetpack that he uses on and off. I'd love to see this in the hands of more people. Let's not get a stimulus check, and they're already talking about more of those, which is crazy to me. But let's not go that road. Let's give everybody a jetpack, maybe just for a week. Maybe you can't give it to everybody for good. I know that a lot of people are already worrying about the safety in that world, but come on, man. It looks like the most fun thing ever, in my opinion, to see this guy flying around in that jetpack and see just the crazy amount of confusion of pilots, of anyone else that interacts with this person, and just wonders what the heck is going on in that world. I think it's tremendously awesome. I mentioned this quickly before, but 69% of adults in a recent survey admitted that not only do they love snacks, but they very often have snacks on them. So if you're ever hungry and in a room of people, odds are that 7 out of every 10 people have some kind of food item on their person. And I think this goes well beyond just saying chewing gum. Things like potato chips and chocolate and candy, the most highly answered items that people carry on their person at all times. I wonder if this is also a byproduct of doing things like working from home and having the kitchen right there, having breaks be easier. Maybe we don't want to get too far away from our food. 51% of people say they often fill up on just snacks as an entire meal at least 3 times a week and don't eat a meal at all. I get all these kind of things. I'm not judging at all. 53% of people in the recent survey from one poll said that they choose unhealthy snacks instead of healthy ones, because an unhealthy snack feels like a snack. A healthy snack feels like you're doing a mini workout of some kind. It feels like you're doing something that's required, not desired. And that's why I never snack healthy. And I think that could be the new bumper sticker for my version of the show. As Craig Collins says, never snack healthy. There's just no fun in it. A quick break, a lot more. This is Craig Collins filling in on the Chad Benson Show.
Warning, no snowflake zone. Uninformed opinions are in danger of melting. The Chad Benson Show.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. Chad is back next week. New York City is considering a vaccine mandate for all of its restaurants. That is for customers going in. That's for everybody involved in the situation. Can you go to a restaurant if you don't have a vaccine? France and some other places started playing with ideas like this, requiring certain things of the public in order to have a life. This is a terrible version of the world in which we all live right now. It's something that de Blasio says all options are on the table. You hope that these kind of things are not decisions that are made. And I honestly, for no other reason, because we can debate till we're blue in the face, and depending on what you already think, there's zero chance I'm going to change your mind if it's something different than me, that, the science or medicine or risk of all this exists or doesn't exist. What I don't want to see is ridiculous amounts of additional conflict happen in our society. I don't want people to show up at a restaurant, be told they can't eat there, or people that are trying to work there be told they got to throw on a mask when they don't want to wear one. In a lot of these situations, the harder we make the mandates and requirements, and the more forced they are in everyday life of people, where it doesn't feel like choices exist, the more likely we are to spiral into an angrier and angrier version of our society that's already tremendously angry. And I think that has to play a part in the equation. This is, I guess, news in the world of anger, but news that kind of makes sense to a lot of people. Kyrie Irving recently tweeted that his sneaker is trash. He put that out there on Instagram and a few other places. He said, I have nothing to do with the design or marketing of the upcoming Kyrie 8, a sneaker named after him that's being put out by Nike. And he said, they are trash. I have absolutely nothing to do with them. Nike plans to release them without my okay, regardless of what I say. So I apologize in advance. This is a weird fight. The whole Disney fight between Scarlett Johansson and that company over money paid for the Black Widow movie is intriguing. But an athlete who has a shoe, in his line of shoes that are supposed to tie to his brand, saying the shoe is bad is a first. I don't think I've seen this a lot. I do remember Vanessa Bryant getting out there and saying that there was a sneaker that she created as a prototype, in honor of her late husband and her late daughter that she had hoped would get out into the world, but she had pushback from Nike on some of the creation of it. So she eventually didn't okay it. And somehow it still got out on social media some places. It still seemed like it was on the market. That was obviously disturbing, mostly because of the emotional part tied into that. But this one is just kind of business intriguing. Kyrie Irving has a shoe that he can't prevent hitting the market. That's his 8th shoe, I guess, from a company that has a deal with him. And he's just going to go out there publicly and say that they're awful. And I can't imagine that helps the sales of Nike. I don't know if a resolution is found in that world, but it definitely is something I'm going to keep paying attention to. There's a new book profiling Tesla and kind of sort of profiling Elon Musk that's getting out there in the world. It tells one very interesting story, according to many, a story that might have been heard or whispered about before. The ultimate power play is what they were calling it. Back in 2016, Tesla was a company on the rise as far as their products were concerned, but not necessarily a company that was succeeding financially. The Model 3 was coming soon, but Tesla was in deep financial trouble. So Tim Cook placed a call. He's the chief executive officer at Apple, and he's like, "Hey, man, what if we buy you?" He said, "What if Apple just purchases Tesla and we make that a cool new Apple product and we throw some Apple logos on Tesla?" And Elon seemed to be okay with the idea under one condition. He would be the CEO. Tim Cook said, well, we've done that before with places like Beats. We've bought other companies. We've let their leadership stay in positions with those companies. And apparently, and this is the part that fascinates me, Elon Musk corrects him. He goes, no, I meant CEO of Apple. If you buy my company, I want your job, buddy. I guess that caused a kind of explicit-laden response from a Tim Cook, a hang up, and then the end of the phone and conversations as far as Apple buying Tesla. Of course, we fast forward to now, and Tesla is doing quite well as a company, as is Elon Musk. But I guess all throughout this book, there are other references of times when Elon was the problem, not the solution, internally at Tesla as far as other people are concerned. He seems to be a erratic, according to the book, leader. I don't know how much of it is true. I don't know how much of it is well researched, and these hit pieces that come out there every so often certainly at times don't represent all the facts. And the book is supposed to be more focused on Tesla than it was actually focused on Elon. But the allegation of power play, Tesla, Elon Musk, and the bet of the century is an interesting upcoming story, to say the very least. A piece of cake. This is 40-year-old cake from the Charles and Diana, Princess Diana wedding, is set to go on sale. It's supposed to be on sale for as much as $700. 40 years old. The wedding took place back in July of 1981. People are expected to have a certain amount of interest on this very, very old piece of wedding cake. This is another odd thing in the news that I can't just sort as much as I want to in my brain. And I've said this before with some of the crazy spending out there, is I wish someone would let me be their financial advisor. I wish they would. Someone who wants to buy a crazy item. You know, it's their money to spend. They can do what they want. You can never force them any direction. But I just like to compare options. And $700 for a piece of cake is not that bad. It's not the hundreds of thousands of dollars that people are spending on some other crazy things. But there is a moment where you're like, well, what else could I get other than this piece I'm going to display in my house of very, very old rotten cake? But I guess this is, of course, somehow tied to history. So maybe it makes a little more sense than the person who bought someone's digital love online for $250,000. That is another story out there. An influencer sold her digital love, which is not anything other than just saying that she loves somebody. She's not going to do anything, is what I'm trying to say. I don't want this to sound more inappropriate than it probably already does. But some guy paid $250,000 to buy something that doesn't exist as a non-fungible token, and just is out there as a concept instead of a reality. Now, that guy I could have talked a little bit more to about the other items that could have been purchased with the total of that $250,000. I know that this 24-year-old influencer is an important person in your life, sir, but maybe there's some other options out there that make a little bit more sense. One other quick story. Very odd, and I don't think I have time for it, actually. Apparently, if the apocalypse is coming, New Zealand's a place to live. I'll get to that some other time. Greg Collins filling in on the Chad Benson Show.
This is The Chad Benson Show.